I didn't plan on coming back. Not after 10 years. Not after everything that happened. But when my father's boat was found drifting near the northern reeds, with no one inside, there wasn't really a choice. They called it an accident. They always do. Cold water shock, strong undercurrents, poor footing on wet boards. The sheriff said the lake has a way of taking what slips. That's the official phrase. There was no body. There never is. Blackwater Lake sits just outside town, wide and still like a sheet of dark glass. Tourists love it in the summer. Kayaks, fishing competitions, families. But the locals don't stay on it after sunset. Not anymore. When I drove back into town, nothing had changed. Same gas station, same diner, same water tower with peeling paint. But the lake looked different, darker, like it absorbed more light than it used to. My father had fished that lake since he was 17. He used to say he knew its floor better than the back of his hand, where the rocks shifted, where the drop-offs were, where the water got strangely cold. He never feared it, but he respected it. The sheriff met me at the dock the morning after I arrived. They'd already pulled my father's boat in. It was intact, no signs of struggle, no blood, no damage, just empty. Probably leaned too far, the sheriff said. There's a deep pocket near the center. Water moves different there. I asked how deep. 40 meters at most. He didn't look at me when he said it. 40 meters. I'd grown up swimming that lake. 40 meters was manageable, recoverable. Divers should have found him. They searched for 3 days. Nothing. No body. No torn clothing. No fishing line snapped. Nothing. The funeral was closed casket. Empty. Just a photograph and a wooden box filled with lake water. My mother didn't cry. She just stared past the crowd, like she was listening for something. On night, I walked down to the dock alone. The lake was calm. No wind, no ripples. The surface reflected the stars so perfectly, it felt endless. I crouched at the edge, touched the water. It was colder than it should have been for late summer. Not surface cold, deep cold. When I pulled my hand back, I could have sworn something brushed against my fingers. Not sharp, not aggressive, just contact. I told myself it was weeds. The next day, I started asking questions. Not official ones, local ones. The kind people only answer if you grew up there. Old man Harlan runs the bait shop near the south end. He's been on that lake longer than anyone alive. When I mentioned my father, he nodded slowly, then looked out toward the water. "Your dad wasn't the first," he said. "Won't be the last." I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer directly, just said, "Currents don't pull boats without wind." That was the first crack in the official story. 7 drownings in 15 years, all near the center, all with missing bodies, all labeled accidental. I went to the public records office, pulled old newspaper clippings. Same pattern, same phrasing. Strong undercurrent, unstable footing, no remains recovered. But there was one detail that didn't match. Every disappearance happened within a 2-week window, roughly every 3 to 4 years. Cycles. I drove to the northern overlook that evening. From up there, you can see almost the entire lake. It's shaped almost perfectly round. Too round. At the exact center, the water looks darker. Not shadowed, darker, even under full sun. I stood there longer than I meant to, watching, waiting for I don't know what. When then I saw it, just for a second, a circular ripple, perfectly round, expanding outward. No boat, no wind, no bird landing, just a disturbance from below. The surface smoothed again, like nothing had happened. That was the moment I stopped believing in currents. That night, I couldn't sleep.
Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined something massive shifting beneath that dark center. Not swimming, resting, waiting. 3 days after the funeral, I found my father's old sonar equipment in the garage. Still functional, still calibrated. And that's when I decided I was going back out there. To the center. I didn't go out on the lake the next morning, not yet. First, I wanted numbers. 7 official drownings in 15 years. That's what the sheriff told me. That's what the papers said. But something about the spacing bothered me. The gaps were too neat, too controlled. I went back to the records office, not for drownings, for missing persons. Small towns don't get many. When someone disappears, everyone knows, everyone talks. I found 5 more names, not listed under lake accidents, listed as runaway, unconfirmed disappearance, left town voluntarily. But every single one of them was last seen near the lake. One was a college kid home for summer break, last seen jogging on the Eastern Trail. Phone recovered near the shoreline. No body. Case closed as runaway. Another was a couple in their early 20s, picnic near the South Dock. Their car was found parked overnight, keys inside, no sign of struggle, no footprints leading away. Case marked as voluntary departure. Both of them, together. That's when the pattern stopped being coincidence. I drove to Harlan's bait shop again. This time I brought names, laid them out on the counter, one by one. He didn't look surprised, just tired. They don't count the ones who weren't in the water, he said. If there's no proof they swam, it's not the lake's fault. I asked him how many he thought there really were. He didn't answer immediately, looked toward the dark center of the water, then said quietly, 13. That I remember. 13 in 20 years, all within the same 2-week windows, every 3 or 4 years. Why cover it up? I asked. He shrugged. Tourism, property values. You think people rent cabins next to something that eats? He said that last word carefully, not joking. Eats. I asked him if he'd ever seen anything. He nodded once. Not seen. Felt. He described being on his boat one night, years ago. No wind, no current, and the hull lifted, just slightly, like something large passed underneath, not hitting it, not attacking, just moving. I got off the water after that, he said. Most of us did. That evening, I drove to the East Trail where the college kid disappeared. It runs parallel to the lake for almost a mile. There are no guardrails, no fences, just trees and shoreline. I stood where his phone was found.
The water there is shallow, waist deep at most. Clear bottom, no sudden drop. If he'd slipped in there, they would have found him. The official lake map is posted at 3 different access points. Maximum depth, 40 meters, marked clearly in blue. I zoomed in on a satellite map later that night, compared older versions. There was a faint discoloration in the center, a darker circle within the circle, almost like a shadow that never moved. The shape of the lake bothered me. Perfectly round, too perfect. Natural lakes don't usually look like that. Not symmetrical, not smooth-edged. I found an old geological survey online from the 1970s, archived PDF, half scanned. Most of the depth readings matched, except for one. At the exact center, the sonar reading was blank. Not 40 meters, not 50, blank. A note scribbled in the margin: signal loss, possible cavern. Possible cavern, under a lake. That night, I dreamed about my father. He wasn't drowning, he wasn't screaming. He was looking down into dark water, like he had seen something before he fell in. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. My room was cold, colder than it should have been. Outside, the lake was perfectly still, too still. And in the exact center, I saw it again. A circular ripple, perfectly round, expanding outward, from below. No wind, no boat, no bird. Just something moving where the depth reading disappeared. The next morning, I loaded my father's sonar onto his old aluminum boat. If the map was wrong, I was going to find out how wrong. Something had hooked beneath it. I grabbed the engine cord and yanked. It sputtered. Once, twice. The stern dipped lower, water climbing over the back edge. I looked down, and through the black water, I saw an outline. Not fish, not debris. An eye. Huge, pale, opening, right beneath me. I launched the boat just after sunrise. Not because I was brave, because I didn't want to do it at night. The aluminum hull scraped softly against the dock as I pushed off. The lake looked harmless in daylight, blue, calm, reflective. It always does. I kept close to the shore at first, testing the sonar, watching the numbers. Delicious meters, 18, 24, normal, gradual slope. The boat cut quietly through the water. No wind, no other boats out that early. As I moved toward the middle, the temperature gauge dipped. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Surface water shouldn't drop that fast. 30 meters, 34, 35. And then the numbers stopped making sense. The reading jumped from 39 meters to 52, then flickered, then blank. Not zero, not a glitch, just no return signal. I slowed the engine. The boat drifted. I stared at the display. The transducer was still active, signal pulsing, but nothing coming back. Like the bottom wasn't there. I checked the map coordinates. I was directly over the center. The darker patch I'd seen from the overlook. I killed the engine completely. Silence swallowed the lake. When a body of water is this large, there's usually movement, tiny waves, surface tension shifting. But this part of the lake was unnaturally still. I leaned over the edge. The water here wasn't blue. It wasn't even green. It was black, opaque, like oil. I dropped a weighted line over the side, marked at 10-meter intervals. 10 meters, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Still dropping. The rope grew heavy, not from depth, from resistance. At roughly 70 meters, the line jerked, hard, not snagged, pulled. I froze. The rope tightened in my hands. For half a second, I thought I'd caught it on rock. Then it moved, sideways, slowly. The line dragged against the hull, metal scraping metal. I let go. The rope vanished beneath the surface in one clean motion, pulled straight down. The water didn't splash, didn't ripple violently, just swallowed it. My heart was hammering now. The sonar still blank, no bottom reading. I turned the engine over again. It struggled, coughed once, then started. As I began to turn away from the center, the boat shifted just slightly. Not rocked, lifted. A subtle rise, like something enormous passed beneath, not touching, just displacing water. The hull vibrated, low, deep. A frequency you don't hear, you feel. I cut the engine again instinctively. The vibration stopped. And then I saw it. A shape far below, not clear, not detailed, but darker than the water around it. Massive, moving. The shape didn't thrash, didn't dart. It turned, slow, deliberate. And the sonar screen flickered back to life. One single reading. 94 meters. Then blank again. 94 meters. In a lake officially capped at 40. The boat shifted once more, this time sharper, like something had brushed against it. I grabbed the oars, started rowing toward the shallower edge. Engine off, no noise, no vibration. Halfway to the 40-meter line, the water temperature dropped again, rapidly. The surface around the boat began to change. Not waves, not wind. Small, circular ripples, perfectly round, forming in a slow ring around me, like something below was aligning. I rowed harder, breathing shallow, trying not to look down. The ripples tightened, the circle smaller now, closer to the boat. And then, a sound. Not from above, from below. A deep, resonant thud, like a giant heartbeat against the hull. The boat lurched violently, nearly capsized. I grabbed the side just in time. Water sloshed in, cold, colder than ice. The sonar came alive again for a split second. The screen filled, not with depth, with mass. An elongated body, wider than the boat, moving upward. Then the screen went dead. The boat tilted, pulled slightly downward at the stern. The eye didn't blink. It didn't dart away. It just looked up, at me. For a second, my brain refused to process the scale. It was too large, too close, and far too calm. Then the boat dropped. Not violently, not flipped, just sank a few inches lower at the stern, like something enormous had shifted beneath it, supporting it. The water didn't churn, didn't explode upward. It simply displaced,
rising around the hull. The boat tilted backward again, slow, deliberate. I scrambled forward to counterbalance, my hands slipping on wet aluminium. The engine sputtered uselessly behind me. The surface around the boat changed texture. Not waves, not foam. Pressure. You could see it. A subtle swelling under the water. A curve forming beneath the surface, tracking the boat. The stern dipped again. Water poured over the back edge, ice cold. It soaked through my jeans instantly. The eye shifted, not rolling, rotating, staying locked on me. Then something struck the underside, hard. The boat lifted sharply on one side. I lost my footing and slammed against the railing. The sonar unit crashed to the floor. The engine died. Silence. And then, the boat stopped floating. Not fully, but enough. It felt like it was resting on something solid, something alive. The hull vibrated again, that low internal hum, like a massive chest expanding. I didn't think. I grabbed the emergency flare from the storage compartment,
Pulled the cap, struck it. Red light exploded across the lake. The water beneath me moved, not upward, not violently, but away. The boat dropped back down with a metallic crash. The stern slammed into the water. The hull rocked violently. I nearly fell overboard, caught myself on the side. The flare burned hot in my hand, smoke curling into the air. For a split second, the water cleared just enough, and I saw it. Not the whole thing, not even half, just the curvature of its body, smooth, dark, scarred, longer than the boat, much longer. It moved downward, slow, controlled. The pressure vanished. The boat stabilized. But then something brushed my calf underwater. Cold, firm, alive. I kicked instinctively, fell sideways into the lake. The shock of the cold hit like concrete. My lungs locked. I couldn't breathe. The world turned black and green. I opened my eyes underwater. Huge mistake. The shape was there, close, too close. Not fish, not scales. The skin looked almost stone-like, ancient. Something moved behind it, smaller shapes trailing it. A current pulled me sideways, not downward, sideways. I broke the surface, gasping. The boat was 3 meters away, drifting. Then the water behind me displaced, a bulge forming, large. I swam, harder than I ever have in my life. My hand hit the side of the boat. I grabbed the edge, pulled myself up, scraped my forearms raw in the process. As I rolled over the side, the water where I'd just been erupted upward. Not a splash, a surge, like something massive had turned beneath it. The flare slipped from my hand and hissed out in the water. I scrambled to the engine, pulled the cord, once, twice. It roared to life. I didn't look back. I didn't check the sonar. I just drove, straight toward the 30-meter line. Halfway there, the boat jerked again. Something hit the propeller. The engine screamed, then cut out. Silence. Again. The boat drifted, and from below, a shadow rose. But this time, it didn't come for me. It stopped, just beneath the surface, holding position, watching.
Then slowly, it sank. By the time I managed to restart the engine and reach the shallows, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely tie off at the dock. 2 people had seen me from shore. One of them was Harlan. He didn't ask what happened. He just said, "You went to the center, didn't you?" I couldn't answer, because for the first time since my father disappeared, I knew exactly what took him, and it wasn't current. Harlan locked the bait shop early that evening, didn't turn the lights back on, just sat behind the counter in the dark, the lake visible through the window behind him. "You saw it," he said, not a question. I nodded. My hands were still shaking. I hadn't told anyone about the eye, or the size, or how close it came. But he already knew. "It's bigger now," he muttered. I asked him what that meant. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling like he was deciding how much to say. "Back in '68, he started. There was a drilling project. Oil survey, private company. They brought in heavy equipment, sonar rigs, floating platforms. Said they were mapping underground pockets, natural gas possibility. They drilled near the center, exactly where the lake is darkest. According to official reports, they hit nothing, packed up, left. But that wasn't what happened. One of the workers disappeared, night shift, platform intact, hard hat still on the deck, boots near the edge. No splash reported, no struggle. They shut the project down within 48 hours, not publicly, quietly. Harlan had been 17 at the time. He said he remembers seeing the trucks leave, fast, too fast for a failed survey. "And after that?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately, just looked at the lake again. "After that, the drownings started. Before 1968, there were no unexplained disappearances on Blackwater Lake. Accidents, sure, but bodies were always recovered, always. After '68, they stopped finding them. I felt my stomach tighten. What did they drill into? Harlan shook his head. Not into, through. The geological survey I'd found from the '70s suddenly made more sense. Signal loss, possible cavern. If there was a sinkhole under the lake, a vertical shaft, it would explain the depth readings. It would explain the sonar drop. But it wouldn't explain the eye. Harlan stood up and walked to the back room. Came out with a small metal box, old, rust at the hinges. Inside were newspaper clippings, personal ones, not archived copies. The kind you keep because you don't trust the official version. One article from 1972 described unusual seismic readings near the lake. No follow-up. Another from 1976 mentioned temporary closure due to unstable ground, reopened a week later. And then there was a photograph, black and white, blurry, taken from the shore. In the center of the lake, a bulge, a dome in the water, large enough to displace several meters of surface. "What is that?" I asked. "Night fishing crew saw it," he said. "They didn't go back out." I studied the image. The shape wasn't random. It was smooth, curved, like something just beneath the surface. "Why doesn't anyone talk about it openly?" I asked. "Quietly," he said. "Quietly. Tourism, boating, summer festivals.
If word spread that something in the lake drags people down every few years, the town dies. So the sheriff's office does what it has to. If someone vanishes near the lake but there's no proof they entered the water, they're listed as missing, not drowned. Keep the number low, keep the pattern hidden. I thought about the couple, the jogger, my father. Why the cycle, I asked. Why every few years? Harlan didn't answer immediately. He reached into the box again, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, handwritten, from someone named Daniel Reeves, dated 1984. It wasn't a police report. It was a letter, addressed to no one. The last line read, "It rises when it feeds, then it sleeps." I felt something cold move through me. "How do you know it feeds?" I asked. Harlan met my eyes. "Because every time it wakes up, someone goes missing." He paused, then added quietly, "And it's been 3 years." Silence filled the shop, heavy. I did the math in my head. The drilling incident was 1968. First disappearance after that. Then roughly every 3 to 4 years. And this year, we were exactly within the window. I left the shop after sunset. The lake looked calm again, harmless. But now I understood something I hadn't before. It wasn't random. It wasn't territorial. It wasn't attacking out of anger. It was hunting, on a schedule. And when I'd gone to the center that morning, I hadn't discovered it. I'd interrupted it. Months passed, not days, not weeks, months. Winter came early that year. The lake froze along the edges. By January, the surface looked solid enough to walk across. People ice fished near the shore. Snowmobiles crossed the shallows. And nothing happened. No ripples, no disappearances, no strange readings. For a while, I almost convinced myself that what I'd seen had been rare, an anomaly, a coincidence. Spring came slow. Ice melted in fragments. The lake returned to that glass-like stillness. I stopped going to the center. I didn't need proof anymore. I already knew. Life settled. I repaired my father's boat properly, replaced the propeller, installed a new sonar system, not to investigate, just to be prepared. Tourists returned in June. Families, kayaks, fishing contests. The town felt alive again, like it always does between cycles.
That's the thing about cycles. When nothing happens for long enough, people forget. 3 years passed, quietly. No unexplained disappearances, no missing joggers, no boats found empty. The sheriff retired. Harlan's shop changed ownership. The old articles gathered dust. And then the temperature shifted. Late August, hot day, no wind. The lake looked calm, but the water was colder than it should have been, even near shore. I noticed it first when I stepped in ankle deep. That deep cold again. Not surface cold, pressure cold. 2 days later, a dog went missing. A golden retriever. Last seen running off-leash near the East Trail. Owner assumed it wandered off. The next week, a fishing kayak was found drifting, paddle still inside. No person. Officially, he must have fallen out. Strong undercurrent.
The words again. I didn't need sonar. I didn't need Harlan. I knew. It had been almost 4 years. The cycle had restarted. And then I saw them. A young couple, tourists, maybe mid-20s, laughing, taking photos on the dock. They rented a small motorboat around noon. Clear skies, no storm warnings. I watched from the shoreline. They steered toward open water, toward the center. I felt it before I saw it. That subtle tension in the surface, that unnatural stillness spreading outward. The water around them darkened slightly, not visibly to someone laughing in the sun, but enough. I ran to my boat, didn't think, didn't debate. I didn't start the engine immediately. I waited, watched their trajectory. They were drifting closer to the exact coordinates where the sonar had gone blank years earlier. Then I saw it, a perfectly circular ripple forming behind their boat. No wind, no wake, just a disturbance rising from beneath. I started my engine full throttle. They heard me and waved, smiling, thinking I was just passing by. I screamed at them to turn back. They couldn't hear over their motor.
The surface beneath their boat swelled. Not violently, just enough. The boat tilted slightly. They laughed, probably thinking it was wake for mine. And then their engine died. Silence. I was maybe 50 meters away, close enough to see confusion on their faces. The water around them sank inward, like something enormous had moved beneath. The woman grabbed the side of the boat. The man leaned over the back to check the propeller. That's when the lake opened. Not exploded, opened. A massive shadow rose just beneath the surface, wide, long, ancient. The boat lifted, just like mine had. Then it flipped. The sound wasn't loud, just metal scraping water. And 2 screams. I reached them seconds later. The woman surfaced first, gasping, thrashing. I grabbed her arm and hauled her into my boat. She clawed at me, screaming about something below. The man surfaced once, 10 meters away, reaching. And then something caught him. Not wrapped around him, not violently. He was pulled straight down, fast. No splash, no blood. Just gone. The water where he vanished smoothed instantly. And then I saw it, fully. It rose higher this time, not breaking the surface completely, but enough. Its head was not fish-like, not reptile. It was elongated, bone ridges along the top, skin thick, scarred, gray-black. The eye I'd seen years ago opened again, larger than I remembered, pale, unblinking. It wasn't rage. It wasn't chaos. It was assessment. It watched me, watched the woman in my boat, and then it sank, slow, controlled. The lake returned to glass. I didn't wait. I drove straight to shore, the woman shaking violently, barely able to speak. Authorities ruled it an accident, boat malfunction, cold water shock, strong undercurrent. The body was never recovered. But this time, people talked. They'd seen the water rise, seen the boat flip without impact, seen the stillness afterward. And I noticed something else. Over the next few days, the lake stayed quiet again, too quiet, like it had finished something. It doesn't hunt constantly. It doesn't terrorize randomly. It rises, it feeds, it descends, and it waits. I don't fish the center anymore. No one does, not officially. But tourists still come. The docks still open. The brochures still describe it as peaceful. The Geological Survey still lists maximum depth, 40 meters. But I've seen the sonar hit 94, and I've seen the eye open beneath me. It isn't a myth. It isn't a legend. It isn't current. It's something that was always there, buried, until someone drilled through its ceiling. And now, every few years, Blackwater Lake breathes again. And when it does, someone disappears.